Hello, so here we are now at the main Gloucester battalion area. This was the vehicle park, which was where ambulances, ammunition trucks and so on were parked. Up here on Hill 235 was Battalion HQ. Over here on my left was the C Company, the reserve company position. And as we heard in earlier stands, on the first night of battle, A Company had been overrun on the ridge in the distance. D Company had also been partly overrun, so the troops from these two positions moved back to this position. And as soon as they arrived in this area, they were told to redeploy up onto Hill 235. So even after a night of battle, these guys are traumatized, they're shocked, they've taken heavy casualties, they're told, get straight up onto the hill. We've got to dig in again because they're expecting further Chinese attacks. Now, the wounded, of course, were being put onto stretchers and laid down here. Some of them were loaded onto ambulances. The more seriously wounded would have a novel form of evacuation. And so one of the veterans recalls he'd been shot and he had been hit with morphine, so he was feeling rather euphoric. And he said, I was lying down, I was feeling okay, and then I felt myself being lifted up into the heavens. And I could look down and I could see the guys looking up at me. And of course, what he didn't realize in his euphoric state was that he'd been placed on the skids of a helicopter, and the helicopter was lifting him out of the battle zone. He was one of the lucky guys because the less heavily wounded men were loaded into ambulances, which were essentially jeeps with stretchers on their backs. So these wounded were put on the jeeps and they headed down the road, 5 Yankee, through the hills. But of course, this had been a Chinese human wave assault. Not only does a forward offensive go in and hit the main positions, while that fighting is taking place, other Chinese units are moving around and behind the unit. So as these ambulances were heading down the road, they ran into an ambush. The Chinese had set up machine guns about a mile down the road, and the ambulances were cut to pieces. This was unknown to the people at the battalion because the road down there is shielded, it moves round, so there was no sound. And around mid-morning, Major Digby Grist, who was the second in command of the Glosters, was told he had to leave the battalion. You don't want to have the commander, the battalion's second in command, in the same place. So Major Grist and his driver got into their jeep and headed down valley to the main brigade area, where they would then be communicating with the Glosters from Brigadier Brodie's command post. As they were driving down the road behind me, they saw the wreckage of these ambulance jeeps which had been hit earlier on. So Grist's driver immediately hit the accelerator, raced through the ambush, machine guns raked the jeep, the tyres of the jeep were shot away, but they managed to break through the ambush. They cluttered up to the main brigade HQ on the rims of this shot-up jeep to report that the Chinese were now behind the Glosters. The road was cut. The Glosters were now cut off from the rest of the brigade. This is dire news for the British, very good news for the Chinese. The Chinese have not only broken through on the river, they've crossed the river, they've deployed around and behind the Glosters, and the Glosters are now going to be fighting a lonely battle surrounded on all sides. And of course the battle itself has changed shape. There's no longer a defence of the riverbank, but there is a defence of this road going through the hills. So though the fight is called the Battle of the Imjin River, it actually becomes a battle to hold this roadhead.